Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be talking about the 10 things that I've learned in 2020. We can all agree on that 2020 really took us all by surprise. But I learned some valuable lessons this year and I wanted to share them with you guys. And I have everything written down in my little notebook. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. And I wrote everything down as it came to my mind. I don't have any of these in any particular order. So I'm just going to start. And then the first thing that I basically learned this past year was that I actually prefer slow mornings over fast-paced mornings. When I was working in corporate, like I would get up and get ready super quickly and then head out to work without eating breakfast or just taking time to wake up. And 2020 really taught me how to slow down, wake up at a decent time where my body feels refreshed, and to just take the time to fully allow myself to wake up, take the time to write in a gratitude journal, really plan out my day at home before I even start working. So I really have been enjoying that, and that is definitely something I'm going to take with me in 2021. And the next thing I learned this past year was to stop trying to be a perfectionist. I have struggled with perfectionism all my life, and if you struggle with it, you know how stressful it can be. It's very toxic. It really is draining. But this past year, I've really let some of that bad self-talk go, and I've just learned to accept things for the way they are. As long as I gave 100% to a certain project or to a certain relationship, I'm okay with it, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what other people may think. Especially doing YouTube, I feel like being a perfectionist is a bad thing, but it can also be a good thing depending on how you look at it. When I first started doing YouTube, I used to refilm my videos like 2 or 3 times until I felt like it was perfect, and that is so draining. I'm literally editing videos all day, so I'm listening to my own voice all freaking day, and I would pinpoint certain things that I didn't like. So if you watch this video one time, you probably wouldn't even notice that one thing that really bugged me, and that is just so impractical. So I've really honed down on not being a perfectionist. I still have a long way to go, but I've really come to terms with myself and really let some of those traits go, if that makes sense. And then the next lesson that I learned is to just trust the process, and it's okay to not have everything figured out for the future. So early this year, I was laid off along with millions of Americans due to the unnameable, because I don't want to get demonetized. But I was laid off, and for a minute there, I was really stressed. Even though luckily we had savings and we had a backup plan put in place, I still felt weird not waking up every single day at 5:30, 6 a.m. and rushing to go to work. And then that kind of just made me feel a little bit more anxious about, okay, how long is this actually going to last? And I feel like everyone felt that way. All of our lives literally stopped. All of our plans were put on hold. But I'm actually grateful for the things that have happened this past year. Obviously, I wish it wasn't really a thing. Sounds weird, but I'm grateful for getting laid off. That job was literally draining the life out of me. So it was a blessing in disguise. And I've learned to be more happy with the present and just trusting the process and trusting that my hard work will lead me to my dreams. And it's okay to not know exactly what the future holds, because when you think about it, no one knows what the future holds. So why are we all stressing so much about it? It's great to have a plan, it's great to have goals, but it's also great to just live in the moment, be present, and enjoy the process. So that's something I really learned this past year to do. The next lesson that I learned is that if you don't work towards your dreams, if you don't work for your goals, then who will? And I was one that would always have like these goals in my mind and these dreams of what I wanted to do, but because I was tied down to a job that I didn't like, and just because it paid really well, I really didn't allow myself to work towards my dreams. I was always working for someone else's dream, for someone else's like goals, and 2020 really taught me that if you don't put in the work, if you don't put in the time and effort, then how are your dreams going to come true? How are you going to accomplish your goals? So this year really taught me to hunker down, focus on exactly what I want to accomplish and work towards those goals. And that is definitely something I'm going to keep with me for the rest of my life. And I really am glad I was able to take this past year to really figure out what I wanted. Another lesson that I learned this past year was to let go of the past. The past is literally in the past. You can't change it. There's nothing you can do about the experiences that you've gone through. No matter how good those experiences were or how bad those experiences were, you have to leave them in the past. And I've really learned to do that this past year. I've learned to let go of baggage that I've been carrying for a while, and it's made me a much more positive and happy person. So if you are carrying the past, if you are tormenting yourself over mistakes that you have done, just let it go and just accept that it happens and it made you a better person, and you're just going to leave it where it belongs, which is in the past, and you're just going to focus on the present and on the future. Another big lesson that I learned was to let go of my high expectations for other people. I struggle with perfectionism, as I just told you guys, so I have really high expectations for myself, but I also have high expectations for other people. And this past year really taught me to let go of those expectations, because I would find myself being really upset for someone letting me down, and they might have not done it on purpose. They might not even know that they let me down, and I would find myself resenting those people. But I've really learned that you can only manage your own expectations, and now I really don't have any expectations for anyone. I know it sounds horrible, but I really don't. Like, as long as you don't lie and you're not malicious or anything like that, those are my only expectations, that you are a good person and that you do the right thing. Other than that, your life is your life and my life is my life, and that's basically what I have to focus on. And I didn't write this next thing down, but it just popped into my head. Another thing that I learned is that just because you have common sense doesn't mean that the rest of the world has common sense. So yeah, you just have to accept that and keep it moving. Then another lesson that I learned this past year is to stop taking Instagram so seriously. If you are on Instagram, you know that 2020 was a year of huge updates for them. They literally changed everything. And I understand that if you are a small business owner on Instagram, or if you are an influencer who lives off what you make off Instagram, I completely understand like why those updates would be detrimental to your business. But I have never monetized Instagram. Yes, I have received free products or things like that, but I've never really gained a substantial amount of money from my Instagram. So I realized, why am I taking Instagram so seriously? And I feel like Instagram can be a very toxic place, especially if you spend hours scrolling through Instagram and comparing your life to what you see on the highlight reel. It can really have a negative effect on your mental health. So I found myself worrying too much about the number of likes I was getting, the number of comments, and I decided to just limit the amount of time I spend on Instagram. I literally go on Instagram now to just update my story, connect with you guys if you guys DM me, and then I'm out of the app. I don't scroll. I have no idea what my family or friends are posting on Instagram. I'm sorry, but I literally have no idea. And I'm a much more happier person. And then the next lesson that I learned is that it's okay to set boundaries for people who come to you as their therapist. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind helping people. I love giving out advice. If I didn't enjoy helping people, I wouldn't have gotten my bachelor's degree in psychology. You basically go into that field to help people. I've always been the one who gives advice. I've always been the one to give out money. I've always been the one to just be there. And this past year, I found that a lot of people weren't returning the favor of simply asking how I was doing or simply asking if I needed anything. And that really taught me to set boundaries. Like, obviously, if you come to me for advice in my personal life, I'll still help you. But if you're constantly coming to me for advice or for money or for whatever it may be, but you're not really there when I need you to be, or you're not even there to ask me how I'm doing, and you're just using me, does that make sense? Then I've set a boundary, and I've basically just made it a point to be like, okay, you're gonna stay over there in your lane and I'm going to stay in my lane until you realize that a friendship or a relationship works both ways and you have to meet the other person in the middle. So that's something that I've learned this past year, and I'm much more happier that way. So yeah, setting boundaries is okay. And with that, I also learned that loving people from a distance is also okay. Oftentimes we try to hang on to people in our lives because we've known them for a very long time, or because they're a relative, a family member. And this past year I've learned to love people from a distance and keep them at that distance, like keep them at arm's length, and that's completely fine. If you find that someone is draining all your energy and is bad for your mental health, then it's okay to accept the fact that you love them, but to also keep them at a distance so they don't have that negative effect in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not you being selfish, it's not you being a bad person. It's just what you have to do to stay afloat, is what you have to do to be happy and make sure that your mental health is doing okay. And then the last thing that I've learned this past year is not really I guess it's a lesson, but it's just a growth that I've had, and is that I'm a much more positive person now than I've ever been in my life. Not to say that I was ever super negative. I've never been a really negative person, but I've always had the type of outlook where the worst is going to happen no matter what. And I think that has to do with my own anxiety. I always think that the worst won't happen, and I'm just always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And this past year I decided to stop that. I decided to kick those thoughts out of my head when they pop in. So if I find myself planning for something and I'm like, okay, well, this is never going to happen because, well, life, and if something bad is just going to happen and I won't be able to get that done, I acknowledge what I'm feeling and I acknowledge those thoughts, and then I just push them out of my mind and I continue to work towards whatever I'm planning, work towards my goals. So this past year I definitely have become more positive. I definitely focused more on my blessings this past year than I have ever in my life. And one of the main reasons I've become a more positive person is basically using a gratitude journal. I know that it sounds so simple and many people have tried it and they don't like it, but forcing myself to sit down every morning and writing things down that I'm grateful for, no matter how small they are, and then at nighttime reflecting on what happened that day really has made me appreciate my life more. And I'm just grateful for both the good and the bad that's in my life, and I'm a much more happy person. I hope that makes sense. Like, I don't focus on the negative. I don't think negatively anymore. So I don't know. I'm just a much more happy person that is looking forward to the future and everything that it holds. If you feel comfortable enough, feel free to leave a comment below with a lesson you've learned. Only if you feel comfortable enough. I don't want to force anyone to do something they don't want to do. I think we can all agree that 2020 was definitely a learning curve for all of us, and we've all learned a lot of things this past year about the world and about ourselves. So I'm excited for 2021. I have a positive outlook that 2021 is going to be a great year, and I'm excited for it. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!